Good morning. My name is Mark Weber, and I would like to welcome you to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Cleveland. We want to welcome everyone, whether you are here with us in the sanctuary or whether you are joining us on one of the online platforms. We especially want to welcome those of you who are joining us for the first time. If you are interested in learning more about who we are, we would ask that you fill out one of the guest cards in the pew rack in front of you. You can then place that card in the offering plate when it comes around later in the service. Then we will be able to contact you and answer any questions that you might have about UUCC. If you are watching from an internet platform, you can go to uucleveland.org. On the back of your order of service is a QR code. It will take you to our contact tracing form. Please take a moment before you leave today to fill out the form. We are now entering a sacred space, and if you have an electronic device with you, and of course you do, please silence it so it doesn't go beep during the service. Thank you. And we will now light our chalice. The words for the lighting of the chalice can be found on the bright yellow card located in the pew rack in front of us. And if you have your card, let us please read together. Love is the spirit of this congregation, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek truth in love, and to help one another. Yes. And now for the call to worship, Amy and I will be reading You Are Beloved and You Are Welcome Here by Joan Javier-Duval. And Reverend Duval is the minister of the UU congregation in Montpelier, Vermont. You are beloved and you are welcome here.
Whether tears have fallen from your eyes this past week or gleeful laughter has spilled out of your smiling mouth.
You are beloved and you are welcome here.
Whether you're feeling brave or brokenhearted, defiant or defeated, fearsome or fearful.
You are beloved and you are welcome here.
Whether you have untold stories buried deep inside or stories that have been forced beyond the edges of comfort.
You are beloved and you are welcome here.
Whether you have made promises, broken promises, or are renewing your promises.
You are beloved and you are welcome here.
Whatever is in your heart, however it is with your soul in this moment.
You are beloved and you are welcome here.
In this space of welcome and acceptance, commitment and recommitment, of covenant and connection, let us worship together. And now, if before we sing our opening hymn, 360, which you may want to have on the ready, I invite you to greet one another, but keep your hands to yourself.
We now come to that point in the service where we share our joys and concerns with others. We do this in two ways. First, congregants may leave a message or a name in the memory book, which we will read during the service. And the second way is for members, friends, and visitors to place one or more stones in the basin of water in memory of someone or something that is special in our lives. Reading first from the memory book, Lisa Van Cleef asks us to send healing thoughts to her brother who is dealing with skin cancer. And now those of us who wish to place a stone in the basin, please form a line and do so at this time. Water in memory of all of those joys that remain in our
Well, good morning. If you made it through the weather today, you get a gold star this morning for being with us, for sure. And actually, this water is a great segue to what I am thinking about this morning, because I saw a piece of social media that taught me something I didn't know, which was an aquarium, I believe, like in some city, I can't remember exactly, but they had just a little explainer that just explained that the word fish is what you use when you're talking about one fish. The word fish is what you use when you're describing a whole group of the same fish. And then fishes is the plural for many different kinds of fish. And I said, oh, I had no idea. But then this led me to a deep dive because you all may know some of this at least, I certainly knew a little bit, that we have bizarrely technical terminology for describing animals in groups. Some of these are very familiar, but then some of them are much more uncommon. Familiar ones, I'm sure we can all sort of name. Like if you see a group of dolphins, that's a pod, right? Yeah, we know it's a pod of dolphins. If you see a bunch of goats in a field, that's like a flock, sometimes a herd as well. This one's a little interesting. A group of lions. A pride of lions. The one that's like probably most funny that we all probably might know is when a group of geese are together. It's a gaggle of geese. These are ones that we're sort of very familiar with, but it turns out that we actually have these for all kinds of animals. And some of them are really quite remarkable, and they get really kind of intriguing. One that maybe more people know is a group of crows is a murder of crows. But then some of these are surprising, and you can see exactly where they came from. Like if you see a group of wild otters together, that is a raft of otters, a raft. I like this one a lot. A group of bats together is a cauldron of bats. That was very interesting. Also, apparently there's a lot of terminology for different ways in which animals group together. So for example, a group of young dogs or cats is a litter. But apparently when they are grouped together in the wild, any group of dogs, that's when they become a pack. So we have these technical distinctions. But when you get into the more unusual animals, the animals that you don't see every day, when they're in groups, and maybe they're not even in groups that often, that's when words get really interesting, and some of them are even poetic. A group of jaguars, for example. A shadow of jaguars. I have never stumbled upon a whole group of wombats, but if you were to, it's a wisdom of wombats. Like that one. Zebras come in a dazzle. Tigers are a streak of tigers. And then without a doubt my favorite, if you see a group of narwhals together, they are not a pod. It is a blessing of narwhals. The other side of this, of course, is that there are some that are clearly, it feels just like whoever was doing this naming just got really lazy and maybe just sort of didn't think about it and sort of just shot from the hip. So we have like a prickle of porcupines, for example. A group of giraffes is a tower of giraffes, sorry. And then here's a great one. If you see a group of panda bears together, obviously not easy to get into a large group. But if you did, it's an embarrassment of panda bears. The thing I realized looking into these terms and sort of finding this terminology is that they all take the perspective of animals existing together in a group only of their own kind. That's the distinction. There are words for these animals being together, but only when they are exclusively one type of animal. And the reality is, this is not the only way that animals are together, right? In fact, if you were in my backyard just the other night, I had a group of deer, along with 2 rabbits, 3 squirrels, a woodpecker, and 1 extremely fat groundhog in my backyard. What do we call that? What is that group of animals called? I was thinking about and brainstorming, so tell me which one you like the best. How about a bus stop? A bus stop of animals. I also thought of perhaps a waiting room, a queue. The one I landed on was a coffee shop. Seemed like they were just kind of hanging out that way. Unlikely animal friends are some of the most interesting ways that animals gather together, and yet we do not have this terminology. We don't have a way to nail down what's actually happening. And yet, interestingly, this happens normally among animals. This is not an aberration. This is not a strange thing. There are animals that exist codependently in symbiosis together. That is the thing that they do. Like when a little reef fish is there cleaning off the teeth or mouth area of larger fish that are around, or we see birds that cooperate with crocodiles. There's all kinds of moments in which these animals are together. And then, of course, the other side of that, because the internet exists, now we have access to extraordinary animal friends that you can find all over the place. There's a lion whose best friends are two dachshunds. There's a monkey who has raised a young tiger. There's all kinds of cases in which these animals exist. But for whatever reason, again, our technical terminology eludes us for this. And I don't like that only because it suggests that the normal way to be is among your own kind. That's what you are when you're in a group. Communities are really only communities when we step out from what is familiar and what is comfortable and what's expected of us. Communities are all about living together on purpose. And clearly some animals do this in these dedicated ways. One of the stories I was reading about in preparation for this today was there's a group of pilot fish who accompany sharks, especially these pelagic sharks that swim through large swaths of the ocean. And apparently a group of these pilot fish had been found following a fishing boat for weeks after that fishing boat had accidentally caught one of its sharks in their nets. It had nowhere else to be. They didn't know what else to do. So they couldn't manage without that collective life, so they just kept swimming. If that is an intentional community, I don't know what is. The lesson here is to realize just how deeply felt that particular sense of community is. It can help us realize that what we are here trying to do, creating beloved community at UUCC, it's really just an imitation of this kind of community building that happens throughout the interdependent web. And so maybe, interestingly enough, this is a way to wrap this entire thing up and come full circle. Perhaps that's a way of thinking about what it is when this particular group of unlikely animal friends gathers together. Maybe that's the terminology we should use for ourselves. When you use our together as a group, we should call ourselves a beloved community.
This morning, for our reading, to help us center, I want to read I Want to Be with People, written by Dana Worsnop. Reverend Worsnop is the minister of the UU congregation in Ventura, California. She writes, "Often people say they love coming to a place with so many like-minded people. I know just what they're getting at, but I know that they aren't getting it quite right. I don't want to be with a bunch of people who think just like me. I want to be in a beloved community where I don't have to think like everyone else in order to be loved and respected. I want to be with people who value compassion, love, and truth, though these same people might have different thoughts and opinions on all sorts of other questions. I want to be with independent-minded people of good heart. I want to be with people who have many names and no name for God. I want to be with people who see in me goodness and dignity, but who also see my failings and my foibles, and who still love me. I want to be with people who feel their interconnection with all existence and let it guide their footfalls upon the earth. I want to be with people who see life as a paradox and don't always rush to try to resolve it. I want to be with people who are willing to walk the tightrope that is life and who will hold my hand as I walk mine. I want to be with people who let our congregation call them into a different way of being in the world. I want to be with people who support, encourage, and challenge each other to a higher and more ethical way of living. I want to be with people who inspire one another to follow the call of the Spirit. I want to be with people who covenant to be honest, engaged, and kind, who strive to keep their promises, and who hold me to the promises that I make. I want to be with people who give of themselves, who share their hearts and minds and gifts. I want to be with people who know that human community is often warm and generous, sometimes challenging, and almost always a grand adventure. In short, I want to be with people like you.
You would remain seated and join in our sung meditation 402. We'll sing it through twice.
Our offering this morning goes to an organization that I think most people here are familiar with, the Heights Community Congress. Formed 50 years ago in 1972, the Heights Community Congress has championed fair housing for all, as well as diversity in our neighborhoods and citizen involvement in community issues. On September 18th, just about a month away, the Heights Housing Tour will resume after a COVID-related break of, I'm not sure, a year or two. The Heights Community Congress sponsors this tour, and this is one example of the many services that they offer. So we ask that you give as generously as you can, but of course, within your means. On the same yellow card that we talked about earlier, please let us read together the words for accepting offertory gifts. Let's read together. We offer these gifts with gratitude, and we acknowledge the constant gifts of time, talent, and treasure that strengthen and nourish this congregation as a reflection of our commitment to community within and without, our purposeful spirituality that is ever searching and growing, and our intentional actions that lead to greater justice in our congregation, our city, our nation, and our world.
Many of us are familiar with the idea of a chosen family. Often it's a concept used as a contrast to one's biological or even adopted family, sometimes because of discord or estrangement. I want to expand on the idea of the concept of the intentional village, a reality which I've been fostering for many years, most intensely since taking on the raising of my granddaughter. Over the years, I've often heard the axiom or even sung the song, "It takes a whole village to raise a child," or to raise our children. I agree, and I would pose that it takes a village, full stop. Many of us pride ourselves, and Unitarian Universalists in particular have a reputation for being independent and self-reliant. As much as I too would like to be able to take care of my own needs and even be able to support others, I have come to realize that I cannot, nor do I need to, meet all of the needs of myself and my family. When I was growing up, I had 4 older siblings and lived in a neighborhood and in a time when the kids moved about freely, stopping at one another's homes for snacks or to use the bathroom. Our house became kind of a hub for games of baseball or football in the backyard, and it was not unusual to have an extra plate set at the table for dinner for somebody's friend. My dad, who taught at Kalamazoo College in Michigan, would often have a colleague over for a drink and a chat in the backyard at the end of a workday. And we housed several social workers for weeks at a time from all over the world as hosts participating in an international counselor and training program associated with Western Michigan University. As an adult on my own, and then as part of a couple and a family, I have always enjoyed hosting gatherings, holiday dinners, small or expansive. I love creating space for people to enjoy a sense of connection or community, to discover commonalities. I have friends that joke about us taking in strays, but I don't think of it like that. That kind of implies a misfit quality to qualify for inclusion. We think our friends are awesome, and that's why we want to be around them. I believe that whether you live alone, as a couple, or a throuple, or as a family with kids, you can profit from and benefit from a village. In the fall of 2017, when it became evident that Sharon and I were going to be full-time parents for our granddaughter, we were all in, though we thought we had moved out of that time in our lives after the raising of a child. Only this time I was in my 50s and Sharon was approaching 60. I had a little more arthritis in the joints. There's a reason that women of our age are not typically fertile. Where would we find the energy and bandwidth to nurture this amazing child? I was a little worried about what the impact of our charge would have on our social gatherings as well, and wondered if it would dampen the interest of our peeps. But it seemed to have the opposite effect. The village rallied around our girl, starting with a grandma shower organized by the ladies in one of my water aerobics classes, providing us with all of the baby essentials we didn't know we needed. And there's a lot more of them now than there used to be, aren't there? Our analytical friend Emily researched the best college fund options and prompted our opening of Leilani's 529 account. Over the last few years, Leilani has enjoyed adult play dates ranging from theater productions at Playhouse Square, outings to neighborhood parks, chases involving chickens and dogs, tire swings, puppet shows, and musical compositions. Leilani has a village of committed and interested aunties and uncles who are invested in her well-being, and so by extension, do we. I want to be clear about something as I talk about the intentional village. Between Sharon and I, we have wonderful brothers and sisters who adore us and our family. We don't, however, have anyone related to us who lives locally enough to be of practical support when it comes to a date night or in-person practical support. We do get together with family. When we do get together with family, we all soak it up and we enjoy the connection. For daily sustenance, however, we rely on the local village, and a village doesn't happen in a vacuum. We've nurtured our village. We've provided loving acceptance and hospitality to friends who have found that meaningful. We always keep a spare bed available for a snowy night or a friend from out of town, and most folks who have been in our home know where to find the tea or the coffee, a glass of wine, or leftovers in the fridge. Sharon, whose love language is service, has shoveled snow, assembled furniture, clipped animal toenails, and helped put up fences. Now we more often ask for help putting up the canopies in the back for the backyard parties or bringing chairs up and down the basement steps. Sometimes the house isn't tidy, or I don't have time to cook, so it's takeout food hospitality, or organizing an outing to a fish fry or a restaurant. Some of you know that we sold our house in Lakewood and moved into our new home in Middleburg Heights. We actually just moved Friday, so this is what I had available to wear today. As we searched for our new home, we certainly considered our own comfort and needs, but we also wanted to have an accessible guest room, a big dining room and entertainment space for the village. We had a half dozen friends offer to help us pack, drop off boxes, and bring us dinner on moving day at the new house. Another resource for an intentional village is a religious community such as this one. As a somewhat awkward kid, an extrovert at heart, I took a while to find my stride and confidence. For a long time, I didn't so much find acceptance and feel integrated into my own peer group in my daily life or at school. Fortunately, I attended a UU church and loved my friends there. I sang in the youth choir, which my mom directed, and felt cherished by a community that I feel helped me form a foundational sense of identity and core values. I met adults who did not condescend to me, peers who accepted me, and kids younger than me who looked up to me, to whom I could serve as a mentor. This is what is available in a community like this. The best intentional village is intergenerational and multifaceted, like that backyard full of different animals in Alan's house. Each generation learns something from the others. Over the years, some of my dearest connections within the congregation were with some of the elders, some of whom have since passed. My friend Lois Ruskin, who some of you may recall, passed away at 96 after outliving her husband and her siblings, and she had never had children. I became her power of attorney and helped her find an assisted living facility when she could no longer be independent. And then I visited her in her nursing home weekly until she passed. We gave up correcting staff who would refer to me as her daughter or her granddaughter, and when pressed, she would just describe me as her person, which Grey's Anatomy fans will recognize as how Meredith and Christina described their friendship. Lois was a longtime member of the church, and we first got better acquainted when we served on the board of trustees together. And over the years, we were in workshops and covenant groups together, and she charmed all of our friends at one of our Halloween parties with her performance of I'm a Little Pumpkin, dressed as a pumpkin. I'm pretty sure she won the award for cutest costume that year, probably the oldest person ever to do so. Usually it was reserved for the munchkins in the group, but she was in a child's costume, so maybe that explains it. My friend Glenn Alshalt, who passed away in 2019, was a fellow West Sider who I could count on to shuttle my older daughter Taisha home if I had meetings after church. He would take her for ice cream and say, "Don't tell your mother." She, of course, told her mother. He and I got in the habit of meeting for brunch after he asked me to officiate his wife's memorial service in 2012, and we just never stopped meeting. I loved his stories about his family, about his military experience, teaching and union rep days, and about the early history of the church. He wanted to know everything that was going on with my family and work, and he was a huge fan and supporter of me when I pursued the path of becoming a commissioned lay minister. Young adult friends we have made through our UU community have helped us to stay hip-ish to social media, and appreciate a sense of urgency and allow for hope when it comes to being stewards for future generations. They've helped me keep my mind more open and flexible as I adapt to more inclusive language as it relates to gender and sexual identity. I feel that in groups tackling any social justice or climate justice issue, the more generations we have involved in the conversation, the more transformative and informed the conversation can be. There are traditions that we have in UU congregations that contribute to the building of an intentional village. How many people here have ever attended a child dedication ceremony at a UU congregation? Quite a few. Some religious communities perform baptisms or christening. We do child dedications, which are ceremonies usually crafted by the parents and the congregation's minister working closely together. Many will include a blessing for the new life of the child, an expression of the parents' or parents' hope for the child, and a promise by the congregation to support and nurture the child. When we finalized the adoption of our older daughter, who was 9 at the time, we held a celebration of family ceremony as part of the Christmas Eve service that year. I loved knowing that there was a community that claimed us, wanted the best for us, and would be there for us if we needed them. Some of you have borne witness to one of or many of the coming of age services or senior Sundays, yes? Quite a few, where we've had the pleasure of seeing the amazing young people of our congregation bridge either into high school classes or launch into post-high school life. They share their personal statements of belief, acknowledge the mentors and teachers within the community, and generally amaze us with their unique, thoughtful, and talented people that they've become. These types of rituals enable us as a community to recognize how we're connected, pledge ourselves to one another, and to acknowledge the rhythms of our lives and accomplishments. They're reflections of our intentional village. Reverend Randy mentioned a few weeks ago that one of the things that they might do is co-create rituals to recognize important events in one's life. It was after announcing Lori Albright's retirement from her professional life. These rituals and rites of passage, these acknowledgments of milestones, are some of the ways we show up for each other. What are some of the ways you can contribute to building an intentional village? Can you provide a ride to church or to an appointment? Can you visit someone who's homebound and help them feel connected, even if they can't be here in person? Maybe you can't or don't feel comfortable visiting in person, but you don't mind making some calls and chatting on the phone. Maybe you're happy to help set up, clean up, or otherwise lend a hand when we have lunches or brunches or fundraising events. I have appreciated adults and older kids and teens who have engaged with Leilani when I had to attend a meeting, sing with a choir, or serve as worship associate. In any community, there are cycles to our ability to contribute and our need to consume, and that's okay. Those cycles can last days, weeks, or even years. Over time, the ways in which we contribute may have to change. I will not help you move your furniture like I might once have, but I will pour you a cup of tea and listen to your woes, or make you a pot of soup if you're sick, and if you're not and you just want a pot of soup. We have a pastoral care team who work with the minister to coordinate the care needs of folks in our community. If there's something you can do to help, contact them. Show up, sign up, be present for one another. Know that being present, contributing to the creation of a space where people are free to be all of who they are, can be enough, and it matters. Just smiling and saying hello can be enough. If you're the one who needs a ride, a kind word, or a few home-cooked meals during a rough spell, you asking for help enables others to be of service and perform a ministry. You allow others to show up for you, to claim you, to be your village. When you are the one in need, it is sometimes hard to recognize the gift that it is to allow others in. I know I always feel great when I have been able to make someone's day a bit better or easier. I feel honored when someone trusts me with a confidence or a burden. Even so, even knowing this, asking for help and allowing myself to be taken care of by others was something that I had to learn how to do. An effective village is reciprocal, thoughtful, and requires conscious intent. In building an intentional village, we become interdependent, accountable, and actively supportive of one another. And in doing so, we become more resilient, more resourceful. I invite you to consider who is in your village now. What or who is missing? What do you need from your village, and how might you ask for it? What can you contribute to your village, and how shall you offer it? How will you know when your village is in balance and working? Notice I didn't say complete. The healthiest villages are ever growing and changing as a reflection of our own and each other's constant evolution. I, for one, am grateful for my village. I invite you to stand and rise in our closing hymn, 1021 in our teal hymnal, Lean on Me. Our closing words by Kent McCusick. In the name of all that is holy, may the connections between us inspire and sustain us. May the flame of life within us and among us be a sacred reminder that we are all called to serve, to grow, and to love as we continue this journey of transformation.
We will need the yellow card one last time. Please read together the words for extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.